Okay, good evening, everyone. I call this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors to order on Thursday, February 27th at 6:30 p.m. Welcome. I would like to remind our community that the purpose of our board meetings is to conduct the business of the district first and for everyone to learn about the district in a safe and productive manner. This evening, there are no community members who signed up to provide comments tonight. So we are going to go ahead with our next agenda item, which is our native land acknowledgement. Vice Chair Benaloga will lead the acknowledgement this evening.
We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Molalla, and the Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to work, learn, and be a community on this land, and we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future. And we honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you, Vice Chair Benaloga. And now we will do the flag salute. Director Wachter, thank you. Will you lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Thanks.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Now we will have our attention turned to our minutes. So board, in the board packet, you will find the minutes of the February 13th, 2025 meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
With approval of the February 13th, 2025 minutes.
Is there a second?
Wachter, second.
Thank you. Properly moved by Director McVeigh and seconded by Director Wachter. Is there a discussion? Okay, seeing none, I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those that oppose, please say no. I think.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, Director. Okay. Director Kemp is calling in. So I believe the motion passes with a vote of 7-0 this evening. Thank you. Next in the board packet, you will find the minutes of the February 22nd, 2025 meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Chair, I move approval of the minutes stated February 22nd, 2025.
Is there a second?
Bauer, second.
Thank you. Properly moved by Director Dobson and seconded by Director Bauer. Is there a discussion? Okay. I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those, okay, got Director Kemp, thank you. And all those that oppose, please say no. And the motion also passes unanimously with a vote of 7-0. Next, we will find the consent agenda for this evening's meeting, also in the board packet. The items on the consent agenda are employment changes, 2025-2026 school calendars, 2025-2027 integrated grant application for student success, and a travel request for the Adrian C. Nelson High School dance team. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? And please read all of the items included.
Chair, I would like to move to approve the consent agenda with the following items. A, employment changes. B, 2025-26 school calendars. C, 25-27 integrated grant application for student success. And D, travel request for an Adrian C. Nelson High School dance team.
Is there a second? Sorry, is there a second?
Benaloga, second.
Okay, properly moved by Director Wachter and seconded by Director Benaloga. I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. And Director Kemp?
Aye.
Okay. All those that oppose, you see no. Okay, and the motion passes with a vote unanimously of 7-0. Thank you, board. We are now going to move on to our first item, which is our Classified Employee Appreciation Week. And first, Vice Chair Benaloga will start to begin reading the proclamation.
Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world, and
Whereas classified employees are the backbone of our public education system, and
Whereas classified employees work directly with students, educators, parents, volunteers, business partners, and community members, and
Whereas classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and instructional support of students, and
Whereas our community depends upon and trusts classified employees to serve students, and
Whereas classified employees with their diverse talents and true dedication nurture students throughout their school years.
Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
Chair Way, I move to adopt the proclamation declaring March 3rd through the 7th, 2025 as Classified Employee Appreciation Week in the North Clackamas School District.
Dobson, second.
Thank you. And is there a discussion? And I believe Director McVeigh will like to comment on this proclamation.
sure. I wrote some notes, and this is actually a pared down version, so bear with me. I'm proud to be with the classified employees during bargaining and our benefits committee. It represents members all across the district. And so classified employees play a crucial role in the success of a school district. While they may not be directly responsible for classroom instruction, their contributions are essential to creating a safe, supportive, and efficient learning environment for students and staff. Here are some key roles why we feel classified employees are vital to the school district. They support student learning. Classified employees such as instructional aides, paraeducators, library assistants provide direct support to teachers and students. They help reinforce instruction. They offer individualized attention and assist students with special needs, ensuring that all learners have resources they need to succeed. They ensure safety and security. School security officers, custodians, and maintenance staff help maintain a safe and clean learning environment. Their presence ensures that school facilities remain secure, well-maintained, and conducive to student success. They keep our schools running efficiently. Administrative assistants, clerical staff, human resources personnel handle essential operations such as record keeping and payroll. They schedule, they communicate. Their work ensures that schools function smoothly and that teachers and administrators can focus on education. They provide essential student services, like our food service workers, the transportation staff, nurses. They all play a vital role in students' well-being. They ensure that students receive meals, transportation, health care, which directly impacts academic performance and overall well-being. They foster a positive school culture, from the front office staff greeting families to custodians creating a welcoming environment. Classified employees contribute to a positive and inclusive school culture. Their interactions with students, parents, and staff help build strong relationships within the school community. They support us with technology and innovation. IT specialists and technology support staff help integrate and maintain digital tools that enhance learning. While the increasing reliance on technology and education, their role is critical to ensuring that students and staff have access to the necessary resources. And finally, they bridge the gap, as many of our classified employees live within the communities they serve. They build trust and foster strong relationships between schools, parents, and local organizations. Their involvement helps strengthen the connection between the school district and our community. And we thank you.
Wonderfully said, Director McVeigh. Thank you so much. And I just want to add to that that classified staff are really the backbone of this district. And I remember during the pandemic, they were lots of them were on the front lines, and they were still showing up to work, still serving our students and our communities and our families. And so much thanks for our classified staff. Thank you. So yes, we'll move to the motion. So it's been properly moved by Director Benaloga and seconded by Director Dobson. And I now call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, all those that oppose, please say no. And the motion passes unanimously with a vote of 7-0. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the North Clackamas Board of Directors proclaims the week of March 3rd to 7th, 2025, to be Classified Employee Appreciation Week in the North Clackamas School District, and be it further resolved that the North Clackamas Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join in this observance, recognizing the dedication and hard work of these individuals. Adopted this 27th day of February 2025. Thank you, Board. Moving on, we have a second proclamation of this evening, and it is Women's History Month proclamation. Director Bauer, we will start by reading the proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways.
Whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of the life of the nation.
Whereas women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation.
Whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation.
Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement.
Whereas women have served our country courageously in the military.
Whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, and
Whereas, despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history.
is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
Chair Wei, I move to adopt the proclamation recognizing March 2025 as Women's History Month in North Clackamas School District.
Is there a second?
Wachter, second.
Thank you. Is there a discussion? And I believe Director Bauer has prepared some comments on this proclamation. Thank you.
I have a few prepared. Yeah. National Geographic stated Women's History Month is celebrated throughout the United States since 1980s. It was born out of a feminist push for equal access to jobs and education. It was born out of a Women's History Month is dedicated to reflecting on the numerous but often overlooked contributions of women to American history from independence to the present. It is a chance to reflect on the trailblazing women who lead the way for change in various fields such as science and politics. And I'll just bring a couple to your attention. The voting movement, Susan B. Anthony and many other women, and it helped to have the men behind that, and then it finally got passed after years of advocacy. It hasn't been that long. It's important for at least 50% of our population to see these leaders and workers that look like them finally in occupations not previously open to them. When I was in college, I was good at math, but I was never told to go into engineering. Math, that was it, be a teacher. And it worked out, but I'm just saying the guidance given girls, given women was not the same. Women in science and engineering, like Margaret Hamilton, the computer engineer, who had to face many barriers, who worked on the NASA Apollo project. Her story is amazing. When I started teaching first, and then I went to BPA, and they did not have the equity, diversity, inclusion at first when I went there. I could see a huge difference when that was included, and our whole workforce was finally trained, and we were respected, and we were treated more like equals then, and there was more opportunities for women to move up. It's now I hate to think of that not being there. Athletics, equal pay in so many of the fields, in basketball, tennis. I don't think we're still there in basketball, but thanks to Billie Jean King, Serena and Venus Williams. And I hate to admit this, but when I was in high school, they didn't have Title IX. And we only had tennis at my high school. I loved basketball, but couldn't play. I remember in PE playing with 6 on a team, and only 2 could do the whole court. There was 2 that were forwards, and you stopped halfway. 2 that were guards stopped halfway. And I remember never wanting to play a guard or forward. And then I would look at that line and I'd think, why can't I get over that line? The boys do, why can't the women, the girls? Even in grade school, I thought, this is very strange. So there's so many areas. So now we're seeing more women, welders, transportation, in medicine, judges, politics, military. We're fortunate to have so many wonderful, strong women locally as our superintendent and her staff and our teachers and our union leaders, our chair and past chairs. I'm so grateful for them stepping up and being leaders and giving hope to our young students. Our bus drivers, our cooks, our teachers, the paraeducators. I could go on and on. So it's important to remember our past accurately so we can continue to learn from the heroes, and those are the shoulders that many of us have been standing on. So let's keep making progress. And thank you. And thank you, men, for supporting us.
Thank you so much, Director, for those powerful words, and for also for many of us who stand on the shoulders of women who came before us. I couldn't help but think about, as we were reading the proclamation and as you were sharing your reflections, just women in my life who have made a lot of sacrifices for me to be where I'm here today. Physically, coming to this country when I was 6, that was a result of my mom making a sacrifice, leaving her homeland, forgetting her language, culture, and just coming here and working multiple jobs to provide for me and my younger siblings and our family. And so I just have much thanks to the sacrifices of my mom, as well as other just amazing women who have encouraged me to pursue my dreams. And so thank you so much for this recognition that our board is playing for the many, many contributions. So the motion has been properly moved by Director Bauer and seconded by Director Wachter, and now I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think I heard an aye. Thank you, Director Kemp. And all those that oppose, please say no. And the motion passes with a vote of 7-0 unanimously. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the North Clackamas School District hereby proclaims that March is designated as Women's History Month, adopted this 27th day of February 2025. Thank you. Okay, moving along on our agenda, we now have board reports, and this is always an exciting time to hear from each other of just things that folks are doing to be involved in committees, be involved in community events that are happening. So I will now set aside some time for each board member, if they have any, to share a report. And I believe this is somewhat in alphabetical order, so not to get anybody off guard, but Director Bauer, you are going first.
Thank you, Chair Wei. I will just report on 3 areas, and one is I've been serving on the Health Curriculum Committee, learning so much, and I've been so impressed with how it's run so professionally. and how the teachers really dig into that and at each level. And there's a lot of work that's being done, and they're very grateful for having that opportunity to do that. It's really important. The other is Wellness Committee covered and updated goals for next year. Great, rich discussion, and it was fun. And there's many people here in this room. And Director, Vice Chair Benaloga was in that committee. And I think Director Kemp was able to get on at least one or two times. But thank you for all that really important work. Oh, and I wanted to thank the culinary program for the great meal that they provided. January and February have been very busy. Mostly it was lobbying and talking to our legislators and making sure that we are being loud and clear about funding for public school over the next 2 years. There was many unknowns and variables that still will impact our final number, but there's a couple items of interest that I also learned. But the first event I worked on with Director Wachter was an OSBA LPC legislative forum, and we focused on 3 areas. I wanted to do everything, but they were smart. They said, no, let's just focus on 3. But we got quite a crowd. I think there was about 70 of board members, community, staff, students. We focused on special ed, summer school and other needs, teacher retirement, PERS. Then we also had a group go down to Lobby Day in Salem and had lots of help with that, our youth equity and the youth collective. And we ended up with about 17 crowding in the legislative offices. And it was great to visit Representative Dobson. She welcomed us. The students, again, they were a little shy at first, but boy, they warmed up and they just opened up. And they had great stories. And we learn and keep learning from them. So I'm so grateful that so many made that trip. Just a few things I learned. There was recently a good forecast report, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to schools. We have the kicker, and we still need to make the case for many unfunded mandates. That includes the special ed, that includes the summer needs. We got to be sure PERS is also covered. That's contracted with our employees. It just did not make sense to me why, of all the weighting averages, why is special ed one that has a cap? I don't get it. Why? And then the high cost of disability service has steadily decreased over the years from 70% to 40%. These eat into our common school fund. So I finally asked a couple, how can we be asked to be accountable if we're continually underfunded? And read the quality education model. You keep hearing me say that. So for 30 years, parents, students, and school staff continue to go down, and we continue to lobby because this is important to us. Our students are our future, and we need to keep funding and providing the investment. Otherwise, we pay more later. That's it. Thank you, Chairway.
Thank you. Next, Director Dobson.
That's not how the alphabet works.
That's what I have. Oh, yeah, it actually could be position order.
Okay.
That's a good flag. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And I will, I'll say that I very much enjoyed the event that was organized by Director Wachter and Director Bauer. It was a really crowded event and a really great opportunity to hear from staff and from community members about the things that were impacting them and their kids' public school experiences the most. So I'm really glad I was able to be there. And of course, I also enjoyed having Director Bauer and the NCSD students down in Salem all crowded into my office. They were amazing advocates for what they need. They need more access to mental health support services at school. They are powerful advocates for school-based health centers, and they need resources for special education. So it was an absolute privilege to entertain them in my office. They were not shy.
Yes.
Oh,
No.
oh, okay. So beyond those two events, I think I'll use my board report time to just report a little bit on some of the things that are coming out of the Education Committee in Salem. I was very pleased that we've had really successful hearings for additional funding for school-based health centers, and that we were able to vote lifting the cap on special education out of our committee and on to the next. And here I just want to pause and urge our school district, our board members, and our families here in NCSD to contact all the members of your revenue committee in Salem and let them know how important it is to you that this bill keep moving. Because funding for special education has to go through the revenue committee before it goes through the Ways and Means Committee. This bill has to make 2 stops and after it passes out of education. And that is different than most other bills that go through this process in Salem. So our next step is to lobby the members of the Revenue Committee and let them know how important it is that Oregon, get in alignment with every other state in the nation. Remove this arbitrary cap that's been in place since 1991, and fully fund special education in the state of Oregon. There are a number of other bills that we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. We'll be addressing. Sorry, long day. My words are failing me. We'll be addressing chronic absenteeism, as well as safety issues. And ensuring that our schools have the resources that they need to treat emergency situations such as cardiac arrest on campus, which unfortunately happens, more than we would like to see. So being prepared is important, and I'm looking forward to working on all of that legislation and making sure that it moves forward.
Thank you, Director Dobson. And Director Bauer,
I forgot to mention the Parent Community Leadership Alliance really helped in getting the schedule together for Lobby Day. I want to give them acknowledgement.
thank you. And next up, we have Director Kemp online.
I unfortunately I don't have that much to report as I've been working out of state a large majority of the time. The one thing though I will say is the Oregon legislature for decades has chronically underfunded our schools. So I think all the board members are doing it. And but I would say parents throughout the district, please reach out to your elected representatives and ask them for better funding for the schools. It will benefit everyone. And, I also think it's important to remind people that in North Clackamas district, we've been fortunate to pass operating levies. There are a lot of districts in the state that aren't able to do that. So, we're in a pretty good position relative to other districts, but we still need the state to step up and do more for all of the school districts around the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Kemp. And next we have Director McVeigh.
I'll get us back on track, be short and sweet. Just want to publicly thank the Sabin-Schellenberg Culinary Department, who did an amazing job preparing a meal that that really elevated my dinner for that night, for sure. And then, excuse me. And then I'm going to be in DC for work next week, and I'm sure for some finance meetings. And I'm confident that a few of our lawmakers there will want to talk to me about federal funding and federal programs. So I'm looking forward to that. So.
Thank you. Very important. Director Wachter.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add two things that I've been involved in the last 4 to 6 weeks. Director Bauer already called out the public school forum, which I just want to add a couple little layers onto. And it was incredibly well organized and highly attended. It was well covered in the media as well. I think the Clackamas and/or Milwaukee Review did a nice job of sort of encapsulating the major issues that we were really advancing. And it was all designed, as Director Bauer talked about, it was designed around briefing our legislators to be really prepared around our specific Clackamas and Hood River County public school legislative initiatives and priorities. The format was really well thought out, and I just want to take a second and say thank you, Director Bauer, because that whole event would not have happened, like many things in North Clackamas School District would not have happened had you not been the spark and the idea person and the legs on the ground. And I literally just rolled in, showed up, and it was like, whoa. This was awesome.
We were there for a couple pre-meetings when no one else was.
That's fine.
This was an LPC committee, and you showed up.
This is my. Why are you taking my time? I'm sorry. Right. So my hat is off to you, Director Bauer, for so many things. I also want to call out another school board member. I believe she's the chair right now, Chrissy Wrights of the Hood River School. And so Mitzi, myself, and Chrissy Wrights really planned this, and then I just think it came off so incredibly well. So thank you. And I think a lot of parents were involved and students, and it was great to hear student voice really added into the whole conversation. So the second thing I'll call attention to on my calendar was the National School Board Association meeting back in Washington, D.C. I attended that February 2 through 4. And this conference is specifically focused on advocacy and preparation of school board members to have meaningful conversations with their Congress people and senators. And so there were some great trainings and sessions at this conference. The one that stands out most in my mind is one focused on maximizing Medicaid billing to support health services functions within school districts. And I know Superintendent James loves when I go to conferences because I text her and go, I'm in this great thing. What are we doing about that? And she always is like within 3 minutes responding back and go, we've got this. It's all right. But long story short, that session was probably the best of the entire conference, and it really focused on meaningful ways to ensure maximum reimbursement from Medicaid to support all of the allied health services functions in school-based health centers and allied health nursing care and occupational and all of the therapies that we provide to students that often go unnoticed by many. So. Spent some time on Capitol Hill with Congressman Bynum and Senators Wyden and Merkley, and we really just went through many of the legislative priorities that we've talked about here in our school board, specifically focusing on continued funding. And, beginning of February, there was chaos around what funds were flowing anywhere and would there be a department to actually funnel them. I think that's still probably a question mark, but we did reinforce the need for the IDEA full funding and mental health access funding and continued support of Tier 1, Title I, Title II, and overall for the Department of Education. But the senators were very concerned specifically around how our students were feeling and if they were able to feel comfortable coming to school, if there was a threat of ICE around. They wanted to hear specifically around student safety questions in that area. So great conference. I was proud to take on the legislative initiatives that we have talked about here and take them to Capitol Hill. And it was great to represent North Clackamas schools.
Thank you so much, Director Wachter, and thank you for going and representing our district in those really important meetings, especially around a lot of this uncertainty around the federal funding piece. So thank you for going there. And we have Vice Chair Benaloga who's next.
Thank you, Chair Way. I want to also call out the OSBA Legislative Forum, spearheaded by Mitzi and of course with Director Wachter as well. I just want to state one more thing about that evening, that I'm just so proud of our parents and our students and our staff that really came to tell the truth, that what education looks like, what classrooms feel like right now. And I'm just really proud of all the people that took their time. Someone found out at the Educational Equity Committee meeting that went until 6:30, and she found out that night that there was that meeting, and she rolled up a few minutes after that meeting started to then again advocate for North Clackamas. So again, just want to shout out to some amazing parents and people that we've gotten, staff and students in our district. I was also able to attend the school-based health center cohort meeting, which is really interesting. And we are so fortunate in North Clackamas to have a student-based health center, a school-based health center in each of our comprehensive high schools. And it's a game changer for our families. It was wonderful to hear what they're doing to do outreach, and then also just the grants that they are working on. So that is a great committee to get involved if you're ever interested. I attended a math studio. Did you go with me? I think we went to a math studio at Rock Creek. It was so interesting. And I have to admit, I was so impressed with this math teacher. She did less than half the talking. The kids really talked about the math problems. And it was amazing to watch them discuss it in their table groups, and then they have to draw cards, and they're in completely different groups that they have to go up to these whiteboards on the wall, and they have to work it out again. And it's pretty amazing because I saw kids seeing themselves as mathematicians. And I know that wasn't always the case. I mean, in education, especially, you were either a math kid or a STEM kid, or you were a word kid, and you were not necessarily all of those things. But I was so impressed with this math teacher. And so I just want to shout out to that was wonderful. And I was one of those kids that was not good at math. And I had a teacher tell me to transfer out of his class because it was going to be too hard for me. And, it definitely is not my strong suit. However, I think I could have learned, and I think I would have very much learned in that environment. So shout out to those math studios. I thought it was incredible. I also went to the Lot Whitcomb PTA meeting, and I am just so moved and always motivated when I visit our parent groups. I mean, these are boots on the ground, making sure that the extras happen. And they're just the backbone of those extras that are happening in the schools, and just so proud of that Whitcomb PTA to continue to meet and to really face the needs and to face the challenges that we all have. Director Bauer and I also went to the PACE graduation where we had one, we see each other a lot, where we had one graduate. And it was, first of all, the PACE graduation is a very personal evening because it's a small cohort, and it was just really lovely. It was wonderful. And she had, and they always do a face cake, so their face is printed on the cake, which I think is awesome. The dinner from the culinary students, was it last week? Last week was wonderful. And I just the presentation, the plates were beautiful. The scallops were perfect. It was lovely. The table decorations were lovely. The serving was beautiful. And then to hear the culinary teacher talk to us about the process that they went through, and actually brought out these giant Post-its to show us how they narrowed it down to get to the menu. Just, again, super impressed. And then I went to the Nelson Clackamas varsity girls basketball game, wonderful to see our athletes at work, but especially love to see our girl athletes out there really killing it on the court. It was a great game. And then I also went to the Milwaukee High School JV basketball game last Friday, and they played West Lynn. And again, just love to see our kids out there playing and playing hard. And other than that, it was just as my regular committees, but I always have to say that youth equity is just one of my favorites. So I love to hear our kids, talk to our kids. Dr. Rodriguez Williams runs a wonderful committee there and really keeps the kids truthful and sharing with us really what's happening in our schools and getting all the feels out while we're there. And I just think that's so important. So I appreciate her work, and I appreciate all the work of our kids that come to those meetings and are vulnerable and kind and open and honest about what education looks like and feels like in our high schools and our middle schools right now. So I want to thank the district for all of that work.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all the board members who are just so active and engaged and just so embedded in our communities. Thank you so much for the report. I will keep mine fairly brief. I went to a few things, and then I would have loved to attend a few more events this previous month, but I've had a personal family health issue, and so just that kind of really just took my time away for being as involved as I'd want to be this past month. And I heard the culinary students did such an incredible job, and so I remember I was all ready to go to that, and then some of the family matters came up. So I'm sad to miss that, but hopefully there's a scallop waiting for me in the future.
Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah. just kidding. We're just a brownie. I don't know. Just kidding. But no, just really, really shout out again to just all of our students who are just so passionate and engaged in not only math, but our culinary program and so many different programs, and being future legislators maybe someday and going to the Capitol. Just the two quick things I did get a chance to go to. The equity committee that we have in our district. This was, I believe, back in January, where Director Bauer and Benaloga were also there. And the topic was on school attendance, and I believe just addressing absenteeism, which I know will come up as a topic after this to talk about. But it was just really good to hear from both students and parents about ways that schools, community can really sort of support students in their attendance. And then the other thing that I know that a lot of us went to just this past Saturday was a 9 a.m. governance session. So, yeah, there was also that happened, and I believe we had a really, really good discussion around future bonding and just looking at just our future finances and ways that we can really make sure that we have what we need in terms of our maintenance and operations, and just really important infrastructure that we have as a district. So we'll hear also more about that later this evening. But with that being said, thank you again so much, board, for your thoughtfulness in giving these board reports. And I will now move us to our next agenda item, which is our school attendance report. So I would like to welcome our Chief of Student and Family Services, Dr. Kalia Williams Rodriguez, and some of her guests who will also be presenting. Welcome. Hello, welcome.
Good evening. Happy Thursday. We're happy to see each and every one of you as we, as a team, talk about school attendance. That's been mentioned a couple times this evening. My name is Kalia Williams Rodriguez.
I'm Kelly Rhea.
I'm Kelly Rhea.
Jeremy Cohen.
Hello, Ryan Richardson.
So in North Clackamas, the strategic points come up several times, and part of what we look at for our attendance is all of these, particularly the student experience and success. So a couple of things we're going to discuss this evening is how we are supporting what we know works well and some areas of future considerations. With attendance, our core values are embedded throughout each piece. So when we describe equity, we're talking mostly about how each student deserves what they need in our public schools. When we talk about relationships, a couple times we've heard about our students discuss how they are impacted with relationships in our schools, which drives their work. Integrity, making sure that we do what we say and say what we do. Empowerment, making sure that we are uplifting the knowledge and skills in our schools, classrooms, and community. And that we show care for each and every person, that they are seen, valued, and showing a sense of belonging. So very quickly, these are our highlights. Hopefully we will be able to support each and every one. Something that we know is that school attendance is oftentimes a predictor of student success. As we highlighted earlier in our strategic point, we are here to share with you that in order to access a free and appropriate public education, students need to be present. So we are share that interest as a school district, and we want to make sure that each and every student has that right. Something that comes up often is how we are supporting students. And once upon a time, there was something called truancy court. So this comes up again when we have students who are not accessing their education with in-person learning. So what we want to share is that there were a lot of moving parts about 4 years ago. One of them was a Senate bill. So Senate Bill A17, this is a quick highlight that talks about how we are not moving forward with sending our students and families to truancy court as a fine for not attending school regularly. So so this is a tell. And if we don't have this information, it's really important. There's a document there that highlights there's a committee that met, a conversation was had, and information was shared to say this is the guidance, that we are not in a place as a state where we are going to penalize families in the court system for attendance. So then we have different responsibilities as a school district. So in any district in our school or state, this is there's a removal of a Class C violation.
Okay, so I'm gonna just put some definitions out there so that we all know what we're talking about in the same way. And the first part is that attendance, as we understand it, is really about documentation of who is and who is not at school. And it frequently gets conflated with discipline actions, and they're separate. They can meet each other in places, but we are really talking about simply knowing accurately who is in school and who is not in school, and when they show up and when they leave. And for the ODE reporting system, it's really an on-off switch. You're either there or you're not there. And so this distinction between excused or not excused doesn't matter. If there's any reason you're not at school, it is considered an absence. And if you're there, and sometimes you're not physically there because you're involved in a school activity that's not in the physical building, that counts as there. So this distinction is really important between excused versus not excused. And then on the, I guess, right-hand side of that slide, chronic absenteeism, which is what the ODE is looking for, and the metric that we pay closest attention to, is students that have below 90% attendance. So as soon as you get to 89.99, then you become chronically absent. And so that'll be one of the important metrics that we show later. And then instead of excused and unexcused, we've moved to a system where we have verified and unverified. And that distinction is really about, do the adults, right, the trusted adults in the families know that you're not at school, or do they not know that you're at school? And so verified, we've increased the ways that you can verify an absence. That's just like calling in, but there's also a button now on Synergy. There's a bunch of ways to do it. But unverified means nobody let the school know that the student wasn't going to be there. And so that generates our auto dialers. And that's like how we then reach out and say, hey, did you know your kid is not here? And then there are some other reasons that count as absences that aren't just verified or unverified. One is we still retain the sick as one of the reasons. And that is really just for us. That's so that we can track if there's lots of kids that are sick at one school, then that we can start to wonder if there's something going on in that small community. That's a holdover from tracking, COVID illness. And then the other one was out of school suspensions. That's something we have control over and also still counts as absences. Okay, so the next two slides are data. This is about what we know, and we've gotten much better at knowing where we are attendance-wise in real time. So this comes from the data dashboard, and what you're seeing here is there's 4 bars. The green, yellow, and orange all count as not chronically absent, right? So it's only the red bar that is the state reported absence level. But what is interesting about this is that those other 2 categories allow us to do a better job of tailoring our interventions. So if we only have chronically absent or not, then we don't have as many tools in our toolkit that we can apply. So, and nearly chronic is students that are 92 to 90%. Trending chronic is 94.9 to 92.5. And then no absence issue is 95% or higher, which that's a shocking, I think it's great. There's a lot of kids that are there almost all the time. And then we know one of the questions is always, well, what does it look like now compared to years past? This is the last 3 years. And actually, this is if we were reporting state data at semester 1, which we don't, by the way, but we ran the numbers as if we would. These are the numbers for this year. And you can see that we're higher. We have better attendance than 22-23, and we've pretty much maintained from 23-24, which is good. And we actually have some more tools. So our goal is certainly to make this even better by the end of the year. When we do the actual state report.
All right. So we want to share with you some of the successes that are happening at each level, some of the things that we think are working really well, we know are working really well in each of our schools. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things happening in our elementary schools. In our elementary schools, in all of our elementary schools, you're going to find strategies around school climate, specifically a strategy called like warm welcome. And this is the idea that regardless of what time a student arrives at school, whether they're, if they're running late that day, if they run in a few minutes late, or if they're getting there and there's only 30 minutes left in the school day, it does not matter. We are welcoming students and reinforcing that we are happy they are there and valued and that they belong in our school system. We also work really hard at building relationships. When it comes to attendance, building relationships with an individual family and focusing on that individual family partnership is really important because every family has a different story about what the barriers are for attendance. So we're working with families to develop those habits to get their students into school regularly. And we also are using a lot of data-driven decision-making. Having access to attendance data in real time through the data dashboard is an incredible tool that our principals are using and their school teams are using, which I'll also talk about school teams a little bit later, where they can identify the trends and we can tailor where our interventions are going.
Okay, at the middle level, some of the things that we're doing specifically that are very successful is that we intentionally schedule our students into teams. So the same group of students share math, language arts, and science teachers. And they're not always in the same class at the same time, but it's that group of teachers who then can share information with each other about who is being successful and who needs some more supports. And then also because students, when they move from elementary to middle, they now have 5 teachers. And so sometimes students miss a single class, but not the whole day. So having the data dashboard really allows us to get much more detailed information about students that might be missing the same class frequently, or are they missing the whole day frequently. And again, that just requires a different intervention. So we're able to match the intervention to the student need a lot more easily. And then the last thing is we've moved to we call it a button. We don't really know what to call it, but on Parent View, like on the app for Parent View, you can push a little button, I guess, that allows you to verify that you know your student is going to be absent that day. And you can imagine at middle school, unlike at elementary, where there isn't one teacher, there was a lot of confusion about how you let the school know that your student is going to be absent. And this has made this system much more effective at knowing who knows their student is not going to be there that day.
And I can talk a little bit about the high schools. That system of teams that Jeremy talked about, the middle school expands up to the 9th grade, and we have some designated time and space for 9th grade teams to meet and talk about their cohort of students. And part of that conversation is around attendance and how do we support students that are struggling with that. Our staffing has been deliberately trying to address issues around attendance, which often brings other issues that are connected to why students miss. And so our social workers, our deans in schools, and our school district partners are instrumental in that. And then finally, I'll highlight the High School Success Network. We have a team of leaders in our district that works with Clackamas County and the ESD, and we meet regularly and partner through really cycles of improvement where we're a network of schools that are looking at how do we impact attendance and what can we learn from one another. And so that's been a wonderful partnership for our district at the high school level.
You may have seen this article. It was in the fall in one of our local papers. And this piece talks about regular attenders. So a sentence that I took away from this article that is probably helpful to keep in mind, it says students who count as regular attenders miss fewer than 18 school days over a year. So we have a school district, us and our neighbors in Gladstone. We're paying attention to some metrics, right, coming out of the pandemic. And you can see there was an increase of 6%, which is a solid number when we're looking at students and their attendance of in-person learning. So we in North Clackamas as administrators, we talk about what we measure the important things. So what we recognize, we get more of. So we have a great start, and we definitely have a ways to go. So we're excited about paying attention to how our students are doing in our schools.
All right, so with that idea that we are off on a great start, but we have a ways to go, we are going to talk a little bit about opportunities. Before we jump into that, I want to remind you that we use a multi-tiered system of support. This is the same type of structure for support that we use for academics, that we use for behavioral support, for social emotional learning support in our schools, and we also apply this with attendance. And a multi-tiered system of support is just that. We have 3 different tiers that we're looking at data across. The first is the universal tier. That's a tier that all students get. Everyone is getting access. And that may look like a school-wide attendance initiative in a school. We also have a tier 2. This is what some students get. These are the students that we start to go like, oh, we're getting a little worried about what attendance looks like. And this may be the students who are getting phone calls home from school staff and other interventions like that. And then we have a tier 3, which is what very few students get, but these are typically situations where students have pretty intense needs, and these are really individualized interventions where we really come together to try to figure out how can we best support this individual situation. Within this comes a lot of looking at various interventions, trying them, and as well as those teams coming together for those decision points to decide when do we need to move to a different intervention for that specific student or situation.
Okay, so the last piece of the puzzle here is connecting the reasons why students may be missing with different levels or tiers of support. And so real quickly, we know that there are students that simply can't go, and that's because of barriers that exist. Those are often connected to health or physical space or issues going on at home. We have students that won't go, and that's often because there's an aversion. They're trying to avoid something that is happening at school. And so that's a whole different reason than a barrier, right? So we have to make sure we're matching our systems of support with the cause that we believe is going on with the student. We have students that don't go because of some myth or belief that they believe. If it's excused, it's okay, or my parents didn't go. And then finally, we have students that say, why go? And these are students that are disengaged. And so that's a whole nother response because they don't see the purpose in school. And so we have to bring that to light and come up with a response that connects to those root causes. So as we talk about our strategies, you can keep in mind some of the root causes that we're considering.
Yeah. So this slide here talks about tier 1. What are the things we're doing for all students across all levels? So this is not just elementary. These are things we're doing across all of our levels. And while I'm not going to read through all of these, I do want to highlight 2 of them. The first one I want to highlight is the use of school teams. In all of our schools, you will find teams. They may be called various names around attendance, but they are looking at attendance, talking about attendance, tracking attendance data, and making decisions around the interventions to put in place to support attendance. I also want to highlight the very first one there, creating positive school climate. All of our administrators and our teams at our schools are really focused on how are we creating spaces where students want to come to school, feel safe at school, feel supported at school, and there's a lot of different strategies that go into creating those positive school climates.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the tier 2 things. And again, there's a bigger list that we don't need to go through all of them, but the 2 that I just want to highlight. The first one is, it says communication with individual families, and the difference between the tier 1 everybody gets, which is like every time you're absent, if nobody calls in or uses the button, then there's a computer that just dials out and says, hey, did you know your student was absent? This is like for students that strategy hasn't worked, and their attendances are either getting worse or not getting better. And so this is like specific people are making phone calls, and these are phone calls about, we really want you to understand. Sometimes we call families and they just didn't know the cumulative effect. They didn't know they had, this was their 11th absence or something, right? Because if they're only happening one at a time, the slides have gone crazy. But the other one I was going to just mention is that we've been putting a lot of work as a district into alternatives to exclusionary discipline. And that is one of the barriers called can't go to school, because someone in the school said you can't. And so we are looking at lots of strategies we have to include students in our schools and have them be accountable for the things they're doing, but not have that be not at school. So those are some of the tier 2 strategies.
And then finally, tier 3, these are students who need even more support or additional support. And that could look like more of some of the strategies that you've already heard, just more of them, or those strategies and an additional. And so things like our staffing around social work and our connections to mental health agencies, this is where those tier 3 supports come into play and are monumental. A lot of times the can't go or won't go are issues that are chronic and need ongoing deep support for students. And so those are a couple services that we can provide, thankfully, that we have available to our students for those that need it in tier 3, and in addition to some of the other things that are listed.
So we're transitioning to some considerations and conversation. Almost a year ago, the Educational Equity Advisory Committee came before the school board and talked about some wins and some opportunities. I'm excited to share the last two in particular around identifying patterns of attendance that is happening amongst our elementary, middle, and high school. So you heard a little bit about that. So not only as a result of the recommendation from this committee, but I know that the school teams were certainly interested in having those conversations around what are the barriers. So know that's happening by looking at data, by having conversations. Some home visits have become an option that's available. The empathy interviews with students, they speak their truth, whether they're 5 or 15, that's for sure. And so we have engagement specialists who have been having conversations with students. You mentioned Youth Equity Advisory Committee, and they have said very loudly their relationships with teachers or the people who care about them in the building get them to school. So that is showing up in many places. We have another slide, so I'm not sure it was skipped, but what I will add finally before discussion is that our future considerations also include there was once upon a time we were looking at Everyday Matters. So we establishing a campaign about the can'ts and the won'ts and the barriers about how school is important. And some communication around some people have been sick, and so they weren't sending their students to school, and what does that look like as well. We also there's partnerships. We have partnerships with our High School Success Network that Ryan mentioned earlier, and ultimately continuing to address the barriers of childcare, mental health support, et cetera. So now we are available for discussion.
Thank you so much. I do have a couple questions, but I can leave mine towards the end, and I want to give an opportunity for other board members if they have any questions or comments. Director McVeigh?
Thank you. I just want to make sure I heard right. You can be absent almost 2 days a month and still be a chronic attender?
A regular.
Regular attender, okay. Years ago, and I think maybe it was punitive, there used to be like Saturday school for those that were chronically absent. Is that anything that's coming back into fashion, and not as a punitive, but as an opportunity to get caught up? Or
I do remember that Saturday school, not personally. I'm not aware if it still exists. Does it still exist?
I do not believe that Saturday school is a system that's in place. Yeah.
how do we get kids caught up there? Summer school, or do we just after school, or how do they get caught up on the learning loss?
Yeah, there's a number of strategies and ways, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. When you miss a school day, you're missing critical instruction and experience. And so simply providing the assignment with little or no context is challenging, right? And so we rely on some of the things that are posted. Our teachers work extremely hard to make themselves available. And then I will just point out, we have things like tutor.com. That's a tier 1 support for students who, if they missed material, they can get access that way. So there's a variety of strategies and ways that we can help kids, but it's not perfect. What is the best way is being there in the moment, but we know that there are barriers that happen. Yeah.
Thank you. Other board members? Director Bauer? Go for it.
I did want to know more about confusion around too sick for school. So is there communication sent home with guidance, like if they have a temperature or, I mean, I think that happens in elementary, but does it go all the way through middle and high school?
So yes, and we certainly have that information on our website. There's a list of what its symptoms are, and we know that means parents have to go to that information, so we can certainly increase our communication around sharing it at particular times of the year. Now, feedback from families has been, you're sending me a lot of information, so we try to balance that. But there is information that is from our nurses that talks about, I won't go into all the details, but what's a 24-hour rule, what's a 48-hour rule, yes.
So then on your page, Educational Equity Advisory Committee, the opportunities, how do students see the value in their learning? How do you address that? Is that
So a couple of ways, again, they tell us. So sometimes they tell us through their behavior, sometimes they tell us through voice. And one of the ways that some of our students, again, I haven't talked to each and every one, but our Youth Truth survey data that we dissect regularly. And we're actually in the season right now for this school year. So students have till tomorrow to complete it. They tell us that, do I see myself in the learning? And does my voice matter? Earlier, there was conversation about collaboration between students. And in the data of our Youth Truth survey, they did indicate when they get to talk with each other, that matters. So when they say, do they see themselves in their learning? It's who's doing the talking. And some students are motivated by different things. They motivate themselves by their own progress academically, or they are motivated by extrinsic motivation sometimes.
And then the one right below it, passing between classroom periods and distance creates anxiety. Has some of that gone down with the, yonder pouch, or not using their cell phones? Because we saw the data showed that went down, but there's still a high level on the Youth Truth survey. Maybe that was last year, though. We don't have the new.
No, the new is in action right now, so the survey closes tomorrow. I don't have that data in front of me about the decrease, but I do know that the peer and belonging and collaboration has gone up. But I'm not sure about the yonder pouches and so forth.
Cell phone.
I don't have, we have data on student engagement in classrooms and things like that, but in terms of passing time and their experience, that's something that we can collect. But I think our Youth Truth data will also elicit some good information about what's going on at that time.
Does it have a question about safety? Do you feel
Yes.
safe? Oh, okay.
Yes,
I would
definitely.
be, interested in seeing that, and hopefully that will increase.
That is my hope.
Thank you. Good report.
Think I saw Director Wachter, and then we'll go to Director Dobson and then Vice Chair Benaloga.
Making the rounds. Right. I think the school district is incredibly lucky to have like the dream team up here working on this. This is a hard issue. And I really thank you for digging in and putting so much time and thought. What I see from this presentation is just intensive thought around the framework of how to approach the problem with new solutions. And I think that's really powerful. Of course, I would love more data. But what I see is the framework for getting to some of these questions answered in the future. In the future, I would love to see sort of proportionalities, like how many tier 3s are there? How many of our students are in that grouping? I would love to see building goals and who's ranking really, really well and what programs are they, sort of best practices and extending them. So I see a lot of potential fruit coming from all of the investment that you've done in this. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Director Dobson?
As a parent of 4 students attending NCSD schools right now, one of whom spent first period one day this week in the parking lot waiting for AAA because they locked themselves out of their car. I really like the button. The button is great. Thank you.
Vice Chair Benaloga?
Yes, I have just a few questions. I thought I understood verified versus excused. Now I don't, because I see on on the tier 1 slide, it says creating clear expectations, verified versus excused. So now, can you explain that to me? Because now I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea of excused versus unexcused is, ultimately it's putting the schools in a place of like trying to evaluate the reason why you're not at school. And
So this is verified versus excused.
right, so that our
those different?
expectations are saying that there is no such thing as excused or unexcused.
Okay,
All we want to know is, do your adults know you're not here?
got it. Okay.
So, and it has a consequence in Synergy itself, which is to say that like Synergy auto dials, like the program is designed to auto dial. So if it's unverified, which just basically you're marked absent by a teacher and the system doesn't already know that, it sends the call.
Got it.
If the system knows, then it puts verified absent across all your periods, and the teacher doesn't even have to, they don't have to do anything because it already knows that you're absent.
Thank you. So
It should probably read verified instead of excused.
okay, because I was like, okay, now I thought I knew, now I'm confused. So
Sorry.
thank you for
That's
that
probably just
clarity.
that box.
I have a question, and I did a little bit of a dive into attendance in the last couple of days. So can you delineate a little bit how you talk about prevention and then how you talk about intervention? Because those are 2 very different aspects of attendance.
You have something? And when I think about that, I would really say that the tier 1 is, there's a lot of the prevention strategies in the tier 1 space. That's where we're encouraging high rates of attendance for all students. We may have a school-wide campaign. We may be talking about attendance rates in schools with staff and with students and with families. And then into the tier 2 and tier 3 is where you're going to see more of the intervention strategies.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And then I wondered, I would love to see some data around, especially high schoolers. Do we have information? And I'm sure this is very student specific, so I get that. It's very granular. Do we know attendance of kids that maybe have a CTE course that they love, or which is one of the disadvantages to a 2-day block schedule? When I was in school, I had choir every day, and that got me to school every day because I wanted to be in choir, right? So we go every other day. Do we have any data or information about what our attendance looks like on the days when kids have those classes versus the days they don't?
Yeah, what we look at, it really comes down to those teams of teachers that are looking at data, and it is granular. And so they're looking at attendance and looking at grades and often correlating the 2 and going, what is going on 7th period? Let's pull up this schedule and let's have some conversations. So it is truly happening regularly in those team conversations at a very granular level. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That is a big lift, and I really appreciate that we are looking at our students' attendance as prevention and intervention. What do we do to prevent it? And then when we start to have a chronic problem, how do we go about intervening and helping create scenarios and bridges where kids will get to school more often? And one quick question about the verifying or excusing themselves. Can kids 18 or older excuse themselves, or does that need to be an adult in their home?
They can excuse themselves.
They can, okay. All right, just one quick thing. So that was it. Thank you. And thank you so much. This is a lot of information, and I know that absenteeism and kids not in their seats and in the classroom during the school day is a definite concern for all of us. And I thank all of you for the time and attention to try to do what we can to prevent and intervene where we can. Thank you.
I see another question coming. I just wanted to interject the conversation about the phone call alerts. Again, we receive feedback from families, it's too much. However, that is a result of Kyron's law. So I think that's important to note that we have a responsibility to notify a family when a student is not where the family thinks they are.
Thank you. I just want to, I have a question or two, and I have some comments. Attendance issues are also very near and dear to me. I used to, back in the day, work with K through 12 students in 4 or 5 different school districts in the Portland metro area. I worked for a community-based organization and was a case manager. And so a lot of the referrals that I received were from families themselves that were struggling with getting their kids to school, or from, counselors and school staff saying like, hey, we need like culturally specific support for, refugee families or ESL families to get their kids to school. So I just want to echo just the work that you all are doing to really look at the root causes of why kids aren't showing up to school, because I think getting to school is the first step in engagement, right? And in students seeing themselves in an academic setting, but also knowing that, hey, someone cares about me. Someone cares someone cares enough about me to notice when I'm not there. And so I really like this framework of, we have to approach this through the lens of personalization and also belonging, and making sure that students feel safe and comfortable when they're coming to school. And I also want to call out, because I did attend that equity committee where I talked to 2 parents that were like in my small group, and they were saying, that they want to try all like their best, right, to get their kids to school. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but what they really appreciate is the school sending sort of like a personal, not just a cold call. And I know it varies from family to family, but at least the 2 parents from different families that I was talking with said they really like that kind of personalized approach of like the school calling me and not just saying like, your kid's not here, and kind of like feeling the blame, but just like, can we offer you resources? Like, is there anything else that you might need? And so I was just remember talking to a mom who was like, more of that would be, great in terms of like supporting the parents in this and really engaging them. So then my thought went to, when you were talking about these school teams, to really please include, the parents or maybe even like older siblings that are in the household, because I think it takes like a whole village and a whole community to, really help support students who might be struggling. And then the question that I had was, do we have any more information or data around demographics? I know that there was just kind of like the elementary, middle, high school breakdown, but any information about, students in poverty, students who are English as a second language that you can share?
We have lots of data. One of the committees that some of you attended was, we can see lots of patterns of location, demographics. So the answer is yes. Maybe the other question is going to be when, when we show it to you.
Thank you. And I think that's so important because, I mean, that looking at the demographics is, of course, one piece of the pie. And I just bring that up because as we're targeting interventions, right? And let's say knowing that, like, okay, there's a lot of high rates of chronic absenteeism, in this feeder system or in this, pocket of a community. I hope that data can inform our approach and how we can really intervene, like Vice Chair Benalogo was saying, because sometimes it's not a one size fits all, right? It's going to be different depending on location or different factors. So I just, the data thing I think keeps coming up. So really do appreciate some additional data. And then just, I promise, last question, how do we want to measure our progress? So if we see this a year from now, right? Like, what does success look like in terms of the percentages, hopefully going down around absenteeism?
That is a great question. And I mean, I think one of our first goals is really to make sure that we're going, like the trend is going in the right direction. And using, I mean, I can't tell you how what an advantage we have now that we have the data dashboard functioning in the way that it is. I mean, I'm thinking about the question about a student who goes to Saban-Schellenberg. Before we have the data dashboard in the way it is now, it would take like multiple synergy reports, which are enormous spreadsheets that are very difficult to deal with. Just to even see that's like, oh, this kid always goes to second period, but doesn't go to any of the other periods that day. And in synergy, it looks like a half of an attendant. That looks like half of an absence. So the patterns were much harder to see. And the same is true about all the demographics. It's really quite easy to find that right now. I mean, it's harder to provide you all those, it'd be like many, many slides. So for me, it's about not only the general trend line going up, but looking specifically at who are the groups of students who have the lowest attendance rates. I bet it wouldn't surprise any of us, right, who it is. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we doing as a system to account for that? And the whole point of tiering is to say, if we apply a strategy that works for lots and lots of kids, we reduce the number we have to focus on. And so, but even inside those subgroups, if there's a subcategory of students who we can see are not attending at the rate that we want, that outperforms, we have to ask ourselves, what is our tier one? What is our strategy to get more of those students to show up more frequently? So I don't have a number. I mean, I would like everybody to want to come to school every day, but
Yeah, I think I can offer what I would add to that. I think that, yeah, picking that number, making sure we have the right trend line. I want to offer that, at the school level, the successes with looks at an individual student, right? Teams will celebrate when we see that trend improve for a student or a family. And those are the big successes we see at the school level. I also want to offer, because we've not mentioned it yet, is that our schools, our principals, this is a really big focus for our school leaders, for the counselors in our schools, and for our teachers. And so our schools have school improvement plan goals that are focused on attendance. And that's where the focus on the structures with the teams and trying these different strategies, that's where that work is happening the most intensely, is at the school level with the school administrator, and them tracking that data across their school system. And of course, we want all students attending school regularly, and we anticipate that we will always have students and families that struggle with attendance. So we want to make sure we're getting really good at supporting them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is really great. And yeah, didn't mean to put you on the spot in terms of like, give us a number that you think, but that's important, right? In order for us to look at our progress and see if, are we making a difference with the campaigns, with the interventions that you all are putting forward? And I think on also the board level, where do we need to make more investments, right? Or shift things, because that's all important as we make other decisions. So. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see. Thank you so much again for that wonderful report and presentation. And next up, we also have another exciting report from Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Matt McCara, and it will be on the quarterly financial report.
Good evening, Board. Tonight I'd like to share some highlights and updates from the financial report for the quarter ended December 31st, 2024. We are currently projecting an ending fund balance of approximately $72.5 million. Both revenues and expenses are largely in line with what our expectations would be for this point in the fiscal year. And as a result, no changes have been made to the forecast for each at this time. Some things that are being monitored for potential inclusion in the next quarterly financial report are things like the overall effective enrollment and updates in any other updates that we have to the state school fund, as well as the overall trend with personnel expenses and other expenses. As part of the financial report, you also have an investment report showing the type of investment and the maturity date and the fund for which each investment is held. I would be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Thank you. And board, this is a routine quarterly financial report we receive every quarter, as indicated. Is there any questions for Mr. McCara? Okay, Director Wachter.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the quarterly update. Appreciate all the work that is behind the scenes to get this done on time and ready and accurate. Question I have is around that 20.77, the projected fund balance as a percentage of the revenue. Can you give us any movement in that? I'm sort of trending in that. Are we on the decline? Are we staying flat? Can you give us sort of a sense of what that number means relative to previous quarters? And then I have a follow-up to that.
Yeah, what I can say, the thing that will drive any change in fund balance is the how expenses are comparing to overall revenues.
Yeah.
What I can say is that in comparison to previous years, the gap between our expenses and our revenues is tightening. In previous years, we have seen we've been able to build reserves as a result of the mix between those two. But that is certainly tightening. We are not to the point where we are deficit spending by any, but that is, again, like getting much closer than it has been in the last couple of years.
Appreciate that. And there are some headwinds coming, I think, as well with PERS and other things that we're all tracking as board members and use for certain.
Yes.
I just am interested in understanding sort of the direction that we're going, and from looking for some historical sort of tightening. I noticed that there's a $12 million difference from the previous quarter. I think you call out in your report. So that must mean that the margin is smaller than it was the previous quarter, but it's hard.
For ending fund balance, the change in ending fund balance from the previous quarterly report is, I believe, $300,000.
Okay, my mistake.
Which was updated to reflect the final audited number. It may, I would have to check, the ending fund balance is updated. So there may have been a change between the budgeted number and what we're currently forecasting now.
My mistake, I misread it. It was 12 million less than the prior year. So that's the difference.
Yeah, and that is a reflection of the fact that our revenues and expenses have been tightening relative to each other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? Okay, thank you so much. This is just a report and a discussion, and so thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is our comprehensive sexuality education plan discussion. This is, again, a discussion item with, I believe, presentations and some slides. And I would like to welcome our Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development, Tammy O'Neill, who will introduce our guest. Welcome.
There we got it. Thank you so much for having us here today. I have Associate Director Rob Holloway here today with me. He supervises our health department, for lack of a better word, the work that goes on to develop and integrate our health standards in our district. So today we are here to present to you our newly revised comprehensive sexuality education plan. And many of you will remember that this is something that is required every 2 years. Every 2 years, our school districts in Oregon are legally required to revise this plan. And what this plan is really a document that demonstrates and outlines how we adhere to Oregon state laws and Division 22. Of course, it's under that umbrella of the sexual education. The last time in 2016 was the beginning year that you may or may not have seen, and then every 2 years subsequently. So in your packet, and you've been sent a link to the new edition, if you will. So there are a few drivers as we revise we'll call it CSEP, so I don't get caught up on the words, the CSEP every 2 years. So what we look at is to develop a timeline and revision process that really allows us opportunity to take advantage of the expertise of our partners and the experts. So we talk with the experts at the Clackamas ESD. We talk to our colleagues in the Oregon Department of Education, and just make sure that we really understand their guidance and any legal changes that have taken place. We also take this time to really review how we communicate with families. In this document, actually, it's a very large part, how we communicate with families so that we ensure they understand the programming provided to their students. So you'll see methods that are in person at conferences, opportunities. You'll see us reach out to them via Parent Square. And of course, we have resources always available on our website. We also solicit feedback from administrators and teachers and parents. That's a key component in how we look at the need for revision every year or every 2 years. And lastly, like I said, we are in an ongoing process of making sure we are complying with the requirements of our legislator and if there are any new standards adopted by our state. So our timeline, like I said, this is the fourth time it's come before you. And in some years, laws have changed and laws have been added. That is not the case for this revision. Therefore, for this revision, we really concentrated on the feedback we received from our parents and teachers and community members, and really studied the recommendations from the Oregon Department of Education and Clackamas ESD to make sure that the information contained in the plan was readily available and readable, that the materials and lesson review and opt-out processes were very clear and available for our parents, and that the information was aligned not only to the legal requirements, but the specific purpose of this document. The CSEP plan is not an adoption. Oregon districts are currently reviewing the recommended materials from the ODE for a new health adoption, but this is a separate process. Districts use the materials they select in accordance to school board policy to fulfill the instructional requirements outlined in the plan. Rob is going to share with you how we communicate with families, as well as the specific changes that we made to the plan.
Each year, communication is sent to all families via Parent Square from each school's health and wellness specialist or health teacher, outlining the standards, content of lessons, and how families can opt out of this learning. The communication is provided in the 5 district-supported languages, and electronic and paper forms are provided to families electing to opt out. Families are directed to reach out directly to their student's health and wellness specialist or health teacher for questions, concerns, or opportunities to view view materials. Additionally, as Tammy stated, these are available during conferences and information is sent electronically to families. Resources, including the complete CSEP plan, are available to our families on our website. Our teachers are provided a curriculum guide, which includes the materials used and ongoing training on these resources. Educators also meet in their content-specific professional learning communities to collaborate on their instruction. We are very lucky to have a health and wellness teacher providing their expertise at each of our comprehensive schools. In February of 2025, minor revisions were made to the 2023 through 25 document to create the draft 2025-27 North Clackamas School District Comprehensive Sexuality Education Plan being presented to the school board this evening for approval. So what was revised? This year, health is calendared for an adoption renewal under the ODE curriculum adoption guideline. The last CSEP approval incorporated the changes in health standards, so no lessons were adjusted in the new law. However, it's important to note that the CSEP is largely curriculum agnostic, meaning districts use their adopted materials per their board policy to address the standards. Therefore, when a new adoption occurs, part of our work is aligning the new materials with the requirements of the state standards and law, including those addressed by a district's comprehensive sexuality plan. The committee did note that the past editions of the CSEP included standards that were not under the umbrella of sexuality education. There were several standards that are addressed in our wellness instruction, including, for example, understanding how sleep is necessary for the brain and body, that were not part of the comprehensive sexuality education. Part of the purpose of the revisions is to be very clear with families, so care is taken to eliminate redundancies. Lastly, we wanted to again reinforce that each year we use feedback from parents to ensure our opt-out communication processes are clear and accessible. We are committed to ensuring our families not only have access to the content of the lessons, but also are able to make timely and informed decisions. Revised continued. Continuing with the revisions, again, many of the changes from the last approved plan were to eliminate redundancy. Additionally, we added references to the process used to adopt instructional materials, referencing the ODE requirements and the school board policies used to make these decisions. The CSEP revision committee consisted of health and wellness teachers, building administrators, and district administrators from various levels. This committee utilized the information provided by families and staff through an online survey to inform the decisions. Thank you for listening to our presentation. What questions can we answer for you?
Thank you. Really appreciate this overview. As Tammy mentioned, this is a 2-year process, right, that we go through in coordination with Oregon Department of Education around reviewing this curriculum. So I appreciate the overview and just where we're at in the district, and also just the transparency that we're providing on an ongoing basis to everyone in our community who, wants to take a look at the curriculum that we are adopting. So thank you. I don't have any questions, but I'll see if the board members, Director McVeigh.
So just so I'm clear, we're really just readopting,
Right.
eliminating redundancy, and then adding anything that the state has made any changes or tweaks?
Yeah,
or
and
is
there actually hasn't been any big content changes at all.
Okay.
Slight wording.
Yeah, slight
Okay.
wording changes, eliminated, again, redundancies. We had listed standards in multiple places. Last year, we did a very large revision on the opt-out process to make it more clear. We didn't have to do that again this year. We got good feedback on that. Parents are able to access that information. So they can make informed decisions. So really, and there haven't been any new standards or anything in it. So it
Yeah.
really is just minor pieces to add to the readability.
Gives me comfort. It's a hot political topic right now across the country.
Yes.
Anytime you hear sexual education with kindergartners, it hit headlines, and it's can be very inaccurate. So
Thank you for saying that. And I think the North Clackamas School District Senate and employees does an amazing job of honoring parent voice in the process and with their students.
Other questions or comments? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the presentation. Moving along, we are going to focus next, bless you, on policy revisions. And this is a discussion item. Thank you so much, our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Shireman, for being here.
Of course, good evening, everyone. Yes, as you said, Chair, tonight I'm here with a discussion item for you. No action being sought tonight. The policies that are in your packet are coming forward after review by the Superintendent's Policy Review Team. The revisions in the packet have their support. I'll just say off the top, it's soup to nuts tonight. So we're going to be a little bit all over the board here. Very important policies, but nonetheless, they're a little bit diverse. The first is family medical leave. We're bringing that forward because as we had the Oregon Family Leave Act and Oregon Paid Family Medical Leave, we needed to let that play out a little bit and then enumerate which conditions are covered by which pieces, and that's what the policy does. I do expect it's possible that this will continue to change as the legislature has an opportunity to fine-tune any pieces related to the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. So at this point, we're bringing forward our best work, but please do know this will probably be one that changes every year or two here in the near future. Next up is a grouping of bills that are coming forward for a couple of reasons. First is that we're updating language about high school credit requirements, and specifically one of the main ones to call out there that I think a lot of you have been watching is the requirement for personal financial education, a half a credit for graduates after January 1 of 2026. So that's now called out in the policy. Also, the state has gone through and realigned some language and no longer is available an alternative certificate for students at graduation. Instead, now it's called a certificate of attendance at graduation for students who that was the most applicable graduating document as opposed to a diploma or a modified diploma. Some students work towards that alternative certificate, now called certificate of attendance. So those are kind of the primary drivers, you could say, for the changes in that grouping, the I's and the J policy that you have. The next is medications. That's a JHCD. And you'll notice that you have the policy, and then you have a pretty substantial AR in your board extras. 14, 15-page kind of AR. As you can imagine, when it comes to medications, we're incredibly explicit in the administrative regulation as to how that plays out in schools. So this particular set of policy updates, I think we should bring forward. There were numerous meetings with our school nursing team, and we need to give them a shout out for really reviewing this, making sure that everything was in alignment between the policy, the AR, ODE's guidelines, OSBA's work. So wanted to call that out for you. But basically addresses some changes regarding how medications are administered in the school setting. And then the final two really are the emergency management and fire, seismic, and safety threat drills. Those two policies, OSBA has recommended some content shifting between those policies. That was the majority of the reason why it came forward. So you can see those changes in your packet. I'm available along with some of the champions from the various policies if you have questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Director Bauer.
Yeah, I want to thank the staff and the school board that is on the committee because this looks like a lot of work. There was a lot of changes. I was trying to follow the credits. So there were 3 classes added. There was a civics half credit, career path, and higher ed half credit, and personal finance. Did it change the total number of credit? I kind of got lost in there.
Yeah, it's a reasonable question. There's a lot of strike through language there.
Yeah.
No, it did not. I'm going to watch Petra and Yvonne here closely, make sure that they catch my eye and wave at me if I say anything that is not true. But no, remaining at 24 credits for
I
high
thought
school
it did, but I
graduation.
was getting lost. Thank you for that. And thank you, committee, for the work.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Director Sharman.
Thank you.
And next, board, we have a contract award for a copier contract as our next agenda item. This is a discussion / action item, and I welcome back our Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Matt McCara.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce Gwen Chapman, our Director of Business Operations. Before turning it over to Gwen, though, I would like to recognize the work that Megan Jelly did on this procurement. She is one of our senior procurement specialists, and she did a really outstanding job working with internal stakeholders and also potential vendors. So, Gwen?
Thank you, Matt. Chairway Directors, I come before you tonight to present for your consideration a 5-year agreement for district-wide copiers and multifunction devices. The agreement utilizes a cooperative contract resulting from a formal competitive process that was completed by the Oregon Educational Technological Consortium. That's quite a mouthful. The agreement is less than our previous 5-year contract while upgrading all the equipment. It's possible because we've seen a reduction in our usage of paper, or copies, as well because of the use of technology, as well as a change in how we use the machines. So in the past, we had a lot of large machines, and we don't have those very large machines now. They're replaced with smaller machines. A team of technology, school, and purchasing staff evaluated the terms, service levels, pricing for multiple cooperative contracts. And the POA pricing included in this proposed agreement is over $350,000 less than the next offer. I know Matt mentioned it, but I really want to acknowledge the detailed and thorough work of Megan Jelly in purchasing, who led this process, led all the team through this process, and negotiated new commitments from POA this year to address requests of our ed users. And so we really feel like this is going to have a positive impact on our buildings and students. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a contract in the amount of $1,296,150 to Pacific Automation to replace obsolete, no longer supported something. Supported copier equipment to all locations throughout the district.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Bauer, second.
Thank you. This is properly moved by Director McVeigh and seconded by Director Bauer. Is there a discussion? Okay, and because this vote involves money, I will call for a roll call vote on the motion. And so please say yes or no or abstain. Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Dobson?
Aye.
Director Kemp?
Aye.
Thank you. Director McVeigh?
Aye.
Director Wachter?
Aye.
Director Benaloga?
Aye.
And Director Way votes aye. So the motion passes unanimously with a vote of 7-0. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, and I believe we are moving to our last agenda item of the evening. Thank you, board, for holding in there. So next on the agenda is our capital bond finance reauthorization. And I welcome again our Director of Finance and Business Services, Matt McCara, who will be talking to us about this item.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight, I bring forward an item for discussion and action in the form of a resolution to authorize the refinancing of all or a portion of the district's 2017A general obligation bonds. This resolution authorizes the district to conduct a refinancing, but it does not obligate us to do so at this time. A refinancing would require favorable market conditions to make it financially viable. District staff will continue to monitor market conditions and trends to assess the viability of a refinancing, and any refinancing would be conducted in time to be reflected in our FY 25-26 budget. I would be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Thank you. Question from Director Bauer?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Way. For some people, this is the first they're hearing of it. We've been briefed. We've had a lot of information. You did a lot of work. So I appreciate what you said. This doesn't mean it's happening. You're looking into it. Yes. So there's plenty of time for the community, if we go forward, to find out and have input. And I just kind of wanted to bring that out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize the refinancing of all or a portion of the district's outstanding general obligation bonds, Series 2017A, tax exempt deferred interest bonds.
Wachter, second.
Okay, the motion's been properly moved by Director McVeigh and seconded by Director Wachter. Is there additional discussion?
Just hope,
Director McVeigh?
I was just gonna say that I hope the fairy bond gods are out there for us. So. This would be a good thing for our community. No obligation, yeah.
Yes, yes, thank you. And just to echo what Director Bauer said, we are, as a district, we know that we have community that's very engaged, is very supportive of all of our, the levies and the bonds that we've put forward in the past. And so, we're also all about the community engagement and the transparency, and so we will continue to update our community with ways that they can continue to be informed about these decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. So there is a roll call that I will have to make for the motion. So Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Dobson?
Aye.
Director Kemp?
Aye.
Director McVeigh?
Aye.
Director Wachter?
Aye.
Director Benaloga?
Aye.
And Director Way votes aye. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0. Thank you so much. So board, it is now 8:27 p.m. and before I officially gavel us out, I just reflecting a little bit on this past month of February. We honored Black History Month. We are able to recognize just the women history makers, either in our personal lives or out in the world in the community. And we're also able to honor our classified staff. And so there's just so much proud recognition that's being done every single month. And I'm just so glad that as a district, we are able to take a step back, pause, and just really, again, recognize all of the folks who have either made a difference or just positively influenced our lives. And so with that being said, we are closing out the month of February. We are entering into March. Hopefully there will be brighter days ahead. I know today was a lovely day. If you were able to step outside for a little bit and catch some sunlight and some fresh air. And we look forward to seeing what next month brings for us. So thank you again. It is now officially 8:28 p.m. and this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors is now adjourned.